Yo, what is up guys? Welcome back to another video on Delta Force. We've just come off the back of a massive live stream dropping a ton of new information about the game, answering a lot of the community's questions as well. So in this video, I'm going to do my best to concisely and quickly get through all of this. It was about a 1 hour 30-minute live stream, so hopefully we can do this in 10 minutes or less. Before we do get started though guys, if you do enjoy the content here on the channel and you want to stay up to date with Delta Force and of course Battlefield, make sure you do hit that subscribe button. Plenty more content to come here in the future, and as always, thank you guys so much for the support, both here on YouTube and on Twitch. I have been streaming a bit more recently, so that is always appreciated. Okay, so the first thing they went over here is the maps that are coming to Havoc Warfare mode in the open beta on the 5th of December. So we're going to be getting 5 maps in total. We're going to have Cracked and Ascension that you guys will have probably played or at least seen on YouTube at some point. Those are the ones from the previous test. And then we have 3 more maps. We've got Threshold, Shafted, and then we have Trench Lines, which is actually another remake from a previous Delta Force game. So there's been some footage rolling in the background for you guys. There was only a little bit of Shafted and the Threshold. They didn't really go too in-depth for those particular maps, but the Trench Lines maps here, they did have a bit of a mini trailer for that one, and this really gives me like Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5 vibes, obviously the trench warfare, and then you've got this massive wind turbine here, which almost gives me Caspian border throwbacks from Battlefield 3. It makes me wonder whether this tower is able to be knocked down and it's some sort of a massive destruction event here, so really excited to play this map actually. It looks a lot better than I expected. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Now, before we continue on, let me address the elephant in the room here, because I know there's one particular question that many of you, like myself, are looking for the answer to, and that is, what are Delta Force going to do with the AI and the bots? Well, you will be happy to know that they are completely removing the bots from all of the main modes, but they're going to add a special mode which is co-op versus AI. So there's going to be a new game mode that is only pitting you against AI with drastically decreased vehicle spawn timers. So if you want to get to grips with the vehicles, learn how to use them, or just play with friends and you don't want to go up against human players, you're able to do that. For the rest of us, we're only going to be playing against humans, so that is pretty much the best outcome I could have really expected. Really great again to see that they have actually listened to the community's wishes and really delivered on those. Now, they also had quite a lot to say about the content release cadence for the game as well. So it is, of course, releasing on the 5th of December, and when it releases, we're going to get the 5 maps that I mentioned earlier on in the video, and the content release cadence is going to look like this. They plan to roll out a major update every 3 months, and that is going to include a new operator, a new warfare map, a new game mode, and then new vehicles and weapons. So if you've been used to playing Battlefield 2042, essentially it's going to be the exact same thing there, which I find kind of funny, because if you remember, Battlefield 2042 originally released with 7 maps, and they got a lot of flack for the lack of content in that game. And I didn't see anybody kicking up much of a fuss in either the Twitch chat or the YouTube chat of these live streams, which is interesting to me because they're essentially giving us a similar amount of content. However, I will say this, they have set some good expectations for it. They've already told us here right off the bat, and let's also remember this is not the official 1.0 release like it was with Battlefield 2042, right? This is only what they're calling the open beta, so when is the 1.0 version of the game going to take over? I'm not exactly sure, but at least they're setting some expectations for the community. We know once the game starts that every 3 months we can expect a big update like that, which didn't really happen very well for Battlefield 2042, did it? They essentially spent the better part of 6 months or so just trying to fix up the game and get it in a playable state. And then in addition to that, they're going to have an annual milestone update, or a new pillar as they call it, which is going to contain like a bunch of changes. It's going to be a much larger patch than these 3-month ones. They didn't go into detail about what the first one is going to contain, but it's going to be there in a year from release. Maybe that's going to be the 1.0 release. And then in addition to that, there's also going to be 2 months after the launch, another couple of maps coming. There's going to be a new operator, and they're going to be adding in the Fortification system. So this is going to operate similar to how we've seen this system in Battlefield 5, for example. You're going to be able to create sandbags and a number of other objects there, and the first iteration of it is going to be fairly bare bones, as I understand it, but they are experimenting with possibilities for the future where you can maybe use your field support score, so that's the score that you accrue in game that allows you to call in like guided missiles and artillery strikes. You may be able to use those points to build fortifications. And they also gave a really interesting example of one of the ways in which these points could work in the future. So for example, you could have one person, let's say you build a machine gun with your points, and then I use that machine gun, and when I score a kill, the points that I get from the kill are split between us. So maybe I get 50 points, but you also get 50 points because you built the machine gun in the first place. I really like this design. I think it really encourages the fortification gameplay. I believe it's a system in Battlefield that most players didn't really bother using. So I'm very excited to see where this goes, but once again, I do want to make it clear that this is only for future design, so the first fortification system that comes into play for the game is not going to include that. Now, moving on, let's talk vehicles. So first of all, they have confirmed that you are going to be able to calibrate and customize your vehicle in games from now on. So before, if you hadn't set up your vehicle appropriately outside of a game, you would be stuck with whatever loadout you had. Now it's going to work just like it does in Battlefield. You're going to be able to customize things just the way you like it, which is good, pretty much expected, to be honest with you, though, for, well, not the full release of the game, but even though it's an open beta, I still expected this to be there, so that's definitely good to see. And I think in certain maps like Ascension, where it's such a large map, especially on like the breakthrough mode or the attack defend mode as they call it. It's like 3 maps in one. So you start off on the beachfront, and then you've got the zip line, and you're going through the tunnels, and then you've got like the hilly area and the tower ride at the end there. And in all 3 of these areas, you do actually have vehicles available, more so on the first and the second zone than the third, but you may want a slightly different setup, right? Because the attackers generally have armored vehicles on like the second sector up the zip line, whereas the defenders don't. So you want like an anti-infantry loadout there rather than an anti-vehicle one. Now, along with that, they've also announced that they are going to be making additional changes to vehicle handling. They want it to be more realistic and a more enjoyable driving experience. And then they also want to work on the sound and the visual aspect of things. So they mentioned stuff like better sounds for the tank tracks, better visual effects. All that sort of stuff is going to see some, not overhaul necessarily, but some improvements there. How much is this going to have an effect? Because right now, I feel like the vehicle movement is not really there, especially when you compare it to Battlefield games. And if we're talking some of the better Battlefield games like Battlefield 4, it's just miles off. So I think they really do have a long way to go if they want to get it better than Battlefield 2042's vehicle play. But I guess we'll see what they do with that there. I'm crossing my fingers. Next, they had a big section on destruction. This has always been something that they've been touting, that Delta Force is going to feature a lot of destruction. And at least for me, when I played the beta tests and the alpha tests, I felt a little bit let down. I felt like a lot of areas weren't destructible the way they'd sort of sold that to me. So this is what they're going to do. They're going to improve destruction both on the existing maps and also on the new maps. Fortifications, of course, are also going to add to this, so stuff that you build with the fortification system is, of course, going to be destructible as well. And then in terms of large-scale destructive elements, like, for example, the warehouse on the cracked map, that one was actually collapsible. They are planning to add more of those, and one of the things they said in regards to the Ascension map is he basically sort of said during the live stream, hey, guess which building is the most likely thing to collapse on Ascension? And then they were like, wait a minute, can we actually say that? No, I don't think we can, so they didn't say it, but it sounds like they are adding some large destruction event to the Ascension map, and I can only expect the same for the rest of them. Like I was saying with the trench warfare map that I was showing you guys before, it looks like that big wind turbine is collapsible in some way, and that's probably going to be a big event there. Another thing they mentioned is also that this is going to have an effect on the map design. So, for example, once again on Cracked, the collapsible warehouse, when you collapse it now, it's actually going to completely shut down the C1 objective. So, if you think back to Siege of Shanghai, for anybody who played Battlefield 4, when you knocked down the skyscraper, the objective still existed, but it changed somewhat. Well, in Delta Force, on that particular map, the C1 objective is just going to disappear, so it is definitely going to change the way that the map plays. And then finally here, a couple of questions that people ask. So first of all, in-game modification for weapons, is that coming to the game? It is planned, but it's not going to be there at launch. So at the moment, you can only set up pre-made weapon loadouts, and then you can switch between, I think it's 5 different ones for each of your operators. So you kind of have to have things really sorted out before you jump into a match, but you can't jump into the gun system in the game. But they do have that planned, and it will be coming at some point in the future. And then on the topic of monetization and battle passes, somebody asked, like, is there going to be battle passes? There are going to be battle passes. There are also going to be individual skin packs for sale, but they really reiterated here once again and doubled down on the fact that the game is not going to be pay to win in any way, shape, or form. So everything that you can buy in game is only going to be cosmetics. There actually wasn't anything about the choice of cosmetics, because I know that's another worry and concern for people is, are the cosmetics going to be grounded in realism? And a lot of the ones we've seen so far don't really look like they are, even though they seem to keep enforcing on us that, like, yes, they are going to be grounded in realism, but then what we see in game just doesn't really look like that. So I guess their idea of realism and militaristic skins differ from mine, at least. I don't know about you guys, what you think about it. Let me know down in the comment section. And then one more final thing before we leave this video, guys. This is actually quite big, and it wasn't in the live stream, but they did post this on the social media. So they have revealed what I believe is going to be the final vehicle for the open beta, and it is the Little Bird Scout helicopter. So not a massive surprise there. We kind of knew this was coming. We'd already seen like a silhouette cutout, and you will notice there that it has rocket pods on it. I don't really hold out much hope that it's going to be very enjoyable to maneuver, because the attack helicopter is honestly a bit of a nightmare. But I did retweet this over on Twitter and say, now the question is, how overpowered is this thing going to be? Battlefield 2042, I'm looking at you. And actually somebody said they've been watching some mobile footage. So the mobile test at the moment has, I believe, the same build that we're going to be playing on the 5th of December. And according to this guy, he says that rocket pods one-shot infantry and they 3-shot tanks, which I honestly have a hard time believing. Take that with a grain of salt. It may be inaccurate by this guy, but I'm definitely going to be hopping in that Little Bird and giving it a try just as soon as I can. So that is about going to do it for this one, guys. There's going to be a lot more information coming out about Delta Force over the next weeks running up to the release of the open beta on the 5th of December. I know they've got more live streams planned covering like the hazard operations mode and some other stuff as well. So I'll be covering anything that is relevant to you guys here on the channel. Make sure that you are subscribed so you don't miss out on anything. And also follow me over on Twitch. You know, I'm going to be doing plenty of live streams of the game in the future. But let me know, guys, down below. Are you interested in the game? Are you going to be checking out the game on the 5th of December? I think one thing that it really does have going for it over Battlefield 2042 is that it's free to play. So it's kind of like a no-brainer. You may as well, if you're able to, download it and give it a try. Unfortunately, it's not going to be on console, so if you're a console player, I guess that means you can't try it yet. That's going to be coming sometime early next year. But so far, I think it looks quite promising. I'm trying to keep my expectations in check here. I'm not going to get too super hyped, but I certainly am looking forward to giving it a try. That is going to do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for watching as usual, and I'll see you guys in the next video.